The crash had happened 3 months ago, but Captain Lauren Brooks still remembered the sound of metal tearing apart as the Wayfarer's hopes slammed into the volcanic rocks of planet Draconir. 47 souls had survived that day. 47 people who now called a cluster of makeshift shelters home, surrounded by black sand and rivers of slow-moving lava. Life was hard. The air smelled like sulfur. The heat was brutal during the day, freezing at night. But humans were stubborn creatures, and Lauren's people had learned to survive. They'd built solar collectors, set up water purifiers, and even started growing vegetables in hydroponic pods salvaged from the wreckage. It was Tyler who found the cave. The kid was only 12 years old, but he had a habit of exploring places he shouldn't. That morning he'd wandered past the settlement's boundary markers, following a trail of unusual footprints in the volcanic ash. Captain Brooks. Tyler's voice crackled over the comm unit, breathless and excited. You need to see this. There's something in the obsidian caves. Something alive. Lauren grabbed her gear and called for backup. Jake Murphy, their head engineer, jogged alongside her, scanner in hand. Kelly Richardson, the colony's medic, followed close behind with her emergency kit. The cave entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for an adult to squeeze through. Inside, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Crystalline formations jutted from the walls, glowing faintly with internal heat. And there, in the deepest chamber, they found it. The baby dragon was small, roughly the size of a large dog. Its scales shimmered between purple and gold in the dim light. But it wasn't moving. Black crystal rocks, probably from the eruption last week, had collapsed on top of it. Only its head and one wing were visible, and it was making the most heartbreaking sound Lauren had ever heard. A whimper. Soft and desperate. Next to the trapped creature lay a massive skeleton. The adult dragon, easily the size of a transport shuttle, had been crushed by falling rocks. The mother had died trying to protect her baby. Poor thing, Kelly whispered. Jake was already scanning it, his face grim. Captain, my database says these are Draconir fire dragons. Apex predators. When they reach full size they can incinerate entire cities. The galactic records say they're too dangerous to approach. It's just a baby, Tyler said, kneeling near the rubble. Babies grow up, Jake countered. Into very large, very angry killing machines. Lauren stared at the trapped hatchling. Those golden eyes looked right at her, pleading. The creature was scared and alone. Its mother was dead. Without help it would die here too, slowly crushed or starved. Every logical part of her brain said to walk away. They barely had enough resources for themselves. Adding a potentially dangerous alien creature to their problems was insane. The Galactic Council would probably call it a violation of non-interference protocols. But Lauren had never been good at walking away from someone who needed help. Hand me the cooling gel, she said, pulling off her jacket. Captain, are you serious? Jake looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Deadly serious. Get ready to lift those rocks on my signal. Lauren wrapped her hands in thick layers of cooling gel. The rocks trapping the dragon were still hot from the volcanic activity, probably close to 300 degrees. Even with protection, she had maybe 2 minutes before her hands started burning. She knelt beside the hatchling. Hey there, little one. We're going to get you out. Just stay calm. The dragon stopped whimpering. Its eyes locked onto hers. Lauren grabbed the first rock. It burned even through the gel, but she gritted her teeth and pulled. Jake and Kelly helped, using metal rods as levers. Tyler talked to the dragon the whole time, his voice soft and reassuring. Almost there. You're doing great. Just a little more. The final rock shifted. The baby dragon lurched forward, and Lauren caught it before it could fall. The creature was heavier than it looked, all compact muscle and sharp scales. For a moment Lauren thought it might panic or lash out. Instead, it pressed its head against her chest and went completely still. The whimpering stopped. Well, would you look at that, Kelly said softly. It trusts you. Jake shook his head in disbelief. The galactic database says these things don't bond with other species. They're supposed to be solitary and aggressive. Maybe the database is wrong, Tyler said, gently touching the dragon's wing. The creature made a soft chirping sound, almost like a purr. Kelly was already checking it over with her medical scanner. Dehydrated, malnourished, but no major injuries. We can treat this. Humans and their bleeding hearts, Jake muttered, but Lauren noticed he was smiling. Tyler looked up at Lauren with hopeful eyes. Can we keep her? Please? I'll take care of her. I promise. Lauren looked down at the tiny dragon in her arms. Its scales were warm, and it had curled its tail around her wrist like it was afraid she might leave. Yeah, Lauren said. We can keep her. What should we name her? Ember? Tyler said immediately. Her scales glow like embers. None of them knew what they just started. None of them realized they just adopted the galaxy's most temperamental, tantrum-throwing species right in the middle of its terrible twos phase. But standing in that cave, watching a baby dragon finally relax in human arms, Lauren Brooks made a choice that would change everything. Sometimes the right choice isn't the logical one. Sometimes it's just the human one. 3 weeks had passed since they'd brought Ember back to the settlement, and Lauren Brooks was starting to understand why the Galactic database labeled Draconeer dragons as dangerously unpredictable. It started with breakfast. Jake Murphy had volunteered for morning feeding duty. Simple enough task, right? Wrong. He grabbed a handful of dried protein bars from their rations, broke them into pieces and placed them in Ember's bowl. The baby dragon sniffed the food once. Then she looked up at Jake with those golden eyes, and he swore he could see judgment in them. Come on, Ember. It's good stuff. High protein, lots of nutrients, Jake said encouragingly. Ember sat down. She planted her rear end firmly on the ground, spread her wings out wide and opened her mouth. The sound that came out was unlike anything they'd heard before. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't even a screech. It was something between a fire alarm and a screaming toddler, cranked up to volumes that shouldn't be physically possible. Every glass container in the settlement exploded. The windows on the habitat modules cracked. Kelly's coffee mug shattered in her hand, spilling hot liquid everywhere. What the? Jake stumbled backward. Ember wasn't done. A small jet of purple flame shot from her nostrils and caught the edge of Jake's sleeve. Not enough to really hurt him, just enough to singe the fabric and make smoke curl up. Did she just set me on fire? Jake patted out the tiny flame, staring at the dragon in disbelief. Megan Torres, one of the younger colonists, started laughing. Oh my God. She just threw a tantrum. An actual tantrum. This isn't funny. Jake protested, but even he was fighting a smile. Lauren walked over, hands on her hips. Ember, that was not okay. We do not set people on fire when we're upset. The dragon huffed, smoke puffing from her nose. Timeout corner. Now. Ember's eyes narrowed. Then right before everyone's eyes, the dragon shimmered and vanished. Completely invisible. Since when can she do that? Kelly stood up, looking around frantically. Apparently since right now, Lauren muttered. Great. We've got an invisible dragon having a meltdown. For the next hour, mysterious things happened around the settlement. Tools went missing. Someone's hat flew off their head with no explanation. And somehow, every single person discovered their left boot had disappeared. Tyler found them later, all piled in a neat stack behind the solar panels. Ember was sitting on top of the boot mountain, visible again, looking extremely proud of herself. The next morning brought a new battle. Scale brushing. Ember's scales needed regular cleaning or they'd get dull and itchy. Lauren had established a routine. Every morning after breakfast, they'd sit together and she'd gently brush the dragon's scales with a soft bristled tool. Except today, Ember had decided she didn't want to be brushed. Come here, girl. Just 5 minutes, Lauren coaxed. Ember turned her head away. Don't be difficult. You love this usually. The dragon planted herself on the ground and went rigid. When Lauren tried to reach for her anyway, Ember threw what could only be described as the mother of all fits. She thrashed. She rolled. She kicked her legs and beat her wings against the ground. The entire settlement started shaking. Small rocks bounced on the ground. Equipment rattled on the shelves. Is that an earthquake? Derek Chin ran out of his workshop. Kelly checked her scanner. Level 3 seismic activity. But it's not coming from the volcano. It's coming from, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Everyone turned to look at Ember, who was still throwing her tantrum in the middle of the compound. Lauren made a decision. She walked away. Captain, what are you doing? Jake asked. Ignoring her. Everyone back to work. Don't give her an audience. It was one of the hardest things Lauren had ever done. Every instinct screamed at her to comfort the upset creature. But she'd raised her nephew back on Earth, and she recognized attention-seeking behavior when she saw it. The colonists followed her lead. They stepped over the thrashing dragon and went about their morning routines. Derek went back to repairing a water filter. Megan continued inventory checks. Tyler fed the hydroponic plants. Ember thrashed for another minute, then 2. Then she paused, lifting her head to see if anyone was watching. Nobody was. The dragon sat up, confused. She let out a small, questioning chirp. Still nothing. Finally, after 5 full minutes of being ignored, Ember stood up. She shook the dust off her scales and walked over to where Lauren was reviewing supply logs. The dragon bumped her head against Lauren's leg. Oh, now you want attention? Lauren didn't look down. Ember whined. Fine. Sit. The dragon sat, sulking visibly. Lauren grabbed the brush and started working on Ember's scales. The dragon grumbled the entire time, making small unhappy noises, but she held still. Good girl, Lauren said softly. See? That wasn't so hard. Up in orbit, the Zentari observation ship had been recording everything. Lieutenant Var stood in his command center, replaying the footage for the third time. Explain this to me again, he said to his science officer. The humans are ignoring the creature when it misbehaves. And it works. That violates every principle of threat management. The creature could have destroyed their habitat. Yes, sir. But they didn't restrain it. They didn't fight it. They just walked away. And the dragon calmed itself down. Var watched as the humans went about their day, occasionally stopping to laugh or take pictures on their personal devices. When the dragon set fire to equipment, they put it out calmly. When it stole their belongings, they retrieved them without anger. They're treating a planetary apex predator like a misbehaving child, Var said slowly. Yes, sir. And it's working. Yes, sir. Var closed his eyes. Send a report to High Command. Tell them the humans have officially lost their minds. Back on the surface, Tyler had started a video compilation titled Amber's Greatest Tantrums. It was already 3 hours long and they'd only had her for 3 weeks. The video footage hit the galactic networks on a Tuesday afternoon. Within hours, every major species in the known universe was watching the same clip. A human child playing fetch with a baby dragon using chunks of molten rock. The video had been uploaded by Tyler, who'd captioned it simply, Ember Learning Fetch. Day 47. In the clip, the 12-year-old boy stood in a cleared area of volcanic rock, holding a piece of cooled lava the size of a baseball. Ember, now roughly the size of a small car, crouched in a ready position, tail swishing with excitement. Ready, girl? Go get it. Tyler threw the rock as hard as he could. Ember launched into the air, wings beating powerfully, and snatched the rock mid-flight. She landed with a proud thump, trotted back to Tyler, and dropped it at his feet. Good girl? Who's a good dragon? You are. The comment section exploded. The Zentari called it reckless. The Krell called it impossible. The Vax called it the most entertaining thing they'd seen in centuries and demanded more content. The Krell Empire didn't deal in entertainment. They dealt in facts, data, and cold hard science. When their high command saw the video, they immediately dispatched their finest xenobiologist, scientist Thurok, along with a full research team. Their ship entered Draconeer's orbit exactly 3 days after the video went viral. What Thurok observed through his long-range scanners defied everything in his database. The humans weren't controlling the dragon through fear or force. They weren't using any visible technology. They were just talking to it. Magnify Sector 3, Thurok ordered. The screen zoomed in on the human settlement. Captain Lauren Brooks stood outside the main habitat, hands on her hips, staring down at Ember. The dragon, who'd grown significantly in the past month, was sprawled on the ground, clearly refusing to move. Ember, it's bedtime. Inside. Now. The dragon huffed and turned her head away. Lauren's voice dropped an octave. It wasn't loud, but there was something in the tone that made even Thurok's scales prickle. Young lady, I'm not asking again. Inside. Right now. Ember's ears flattened. She stood up slowly, wings drooping, and trudged toward the habitat entrance like she was walking to her doom. What was that? One of Thurok's assistants whispered. I believe the humans call it the mom voice, Thurok replied, frantically taking notes. Somehow, vocal tone alone compelled the apex predator to comply. The observations continued. Over the following days, the Krell scientists documented something even more baffling. A human named Brett Cooper had been teaching Ember commands using food rewards. Sit, Brett said, holding up a piece of thermal fish. Ember sat, though she looked annoyed about it. Good. Stay. Brett walked backward several steps. Ember remained sitting, though her tail twitched impatiently. Okay, come. The dragon bounded forward and got her treat. Thurok transmitted his findings to the Krell High Command. The humans have achieved full domestication of a Class A predator species using nothing but patience and what they call positive reinforcement. No technology. No weapons. No chemical conditioning. Just treats and praise. The response from High Command was immediate. Impossible. Verify your equipment. Thurok verified everything. His equipment was fine. The impossible was happening right in front of him. The most fascinating incident occurred on day 6 of observation. Evening was falling and the humans were calling it a day. Most had headed inside to eat dinner and rest. Lauren stood at the habitat entrance. Ember? Inside time. The dragon, who'd been basking in the last rays of sunlight, looked at Lauren. Then she deliberately laid down in the dirt, closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. Don't even try that with me. Inside. Ember didn't move. Fine. Suit yourself. Lauren turned and walked inside, closing the door behind her. Through the windows, the Krell could see the humans settling in for the evening. They were eating, talking, and laughing. Nobody was paying attention to the dragon outside. Ember opened one eye, then the other. She lifted her head and looked at the closed door. She let out a small roar. Nothing happened. She roared louder. Still nothing. The dragon stood up and paced back and forth in front of the door, making increasingly pathetic whining sounds. The humans inside continued to ignore her completely. After exactly 10 minutes and 37 seconds, Ember walked to the door and scratched at it gently. The door opened. The dragon slunk inside, head low, and went straight to her designated sleeping area without being told. Thurrock watched this in stunned silence. Then he opened a communication channel directly to the human settlement. It was against protocol, but he had to know. Captain Brooks, this is Scientist Thurrock of the Krell Empire. I must ask, what just happened? Lauren's face appeared on his screen, looking mildly amused. Oh, the door thing? That's just reverse psychology. Works every time. Reverse psychology? Yeah. She wanted to stay outside to test boundaries. If I'd argued or forced her, it would have become a whole thing. But if I just let her make her own choice and remove the audience, she realized inside was actually where she wanted to be. But, how did you know that would work? Lauren shrugged. Raised my nephew. Same principle. Kids want attention more than they want their way most of the time. Thurrock's brain felt like it was melting. You're comparing a planetary apex predator to a child? I mean, she basically is one. Baby dragons are just kids with scales and fire breath. The communication ended. Thurrock sat in silence, trying to process what he'd learned. His databases contained nothing about parenting strategies or reverse psychology. These weren't terms used in xenobiology. Meanwhile, the Zentari observers were having their own crisis. Lieutenant Var had sent 17 reports to his superiors, each one more confused than the last. His final report simply read, "The humans have lost their minds, but it's working." No further explanation available. On the surface, life continued as normal. Or what passed for normal when you were raising a dragon. By month 4, Ember had grown to the size of a shuttle. She'd learned 17 different commands. Sit, stay, come, leave it, drop it, gentle, quiet, inside, outside, bedtime, no fire, share, wait, heal, off, settle, and the ever-important not in your mouth. She followed these commands approximately 60% of the time. The other 40%, she exercised what Lauren called selective hearing. Tyler's video channel had gained 3 billion followers across 47 different species. His most popular video was titled, Ember Refuses Bath Time and Immediately Regrets It, and had been viewed over 900 million times. The galaxy watched, amazed and confused in equal measure. The humans just called it Tuesday. The Void Marauders had been tracking the human settlement for 2 weeks. 6 pirate ships, armed to the teeth, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their captain, a scarred veteran named Crix, studied the scans with satisfaction. The human colony was isolated. No military support. No orbital defenses. No backup within 3 systems. Just a crashed colony ship, some makeshift shelters and 47 soft, vulnerable humans. Easy prey, Crix growled to his crew. We hit them fast, take everything valuable and jump out before anyone notices. What Crix didn't know was that timing mattered. What he really didn't know was that you never, ever interrupt a dragon's afternoon nap. Down on the surface, Lauren Brooks was doing inventory when the alarm blared. Her wrist comm lit up with Jake's panicked voice. Captain. 6 ships incoming, descending fast. They're not responding to hails. I'm reading weapons charging. Everyone to the bunker now? Lauren shouted across the settlement. People dropped what they were doing and ran. Kelly grabbed the medical supplies. Brett secured the food stores. Derek made sure the backup power was online. Within 2 minutes, all 47 colonists were sealed inside the reinforced underground shelter they'd built for volcanic emergencies. All except one. Wait, where's Ember? Tyler looked around frantically. Lauren checked the cameras. Her heart sank. She's in her usual spot. Still sleeping. 6 months old and Ember had grown to the size of a small spacecraft. She'd also developed extremely specific habits. One of those habits was her afternoon nap, from 2 to 4 p.m., every single day without fail. During that time, she slept like the dead in her favorite sunny spot behind the main habitat. And she did not like being woken up. Should we try to get her? Brett asked. No time, Jake said, monitoring the incoming ships. They're 30 seconds out. The Marauder ships descended in formation, weapons hot and ready. Crix grinned as his targeting systems locked onto the human structures. This would be over in minutes. Then his ship shook. Art. A sound hit them like a physical wall. It wasn't just loud. It was a frequency that made their instruments scream and their bones vibrate. Every navigation screen on every ship went haywire at the same moment. What is that? Crix's co-pilot yelled. Through the viewport they saw it. A dragon, purple and gold scales blazing with internal fire, had launched herself into the air. And she was absolutely furious. Ember had been having the best dream. Something about unlimited thermal fish and belly rubs. Then suddenly loud noises and shaking woke her up. Strange metal things were flying around making terrible sounds. And Ember was not okay with this. The 6-month-old dragon did what any cranky, sleep-deprived toddler would do. She threw the biggest tantrum of her life. Down in the bunker, the humans felt the ground shake. Is that another earthquake? Kelly gripped the wall. No, Lauren said, watching the external cameras in awe. That's Ember. The dragon's screech was building in intensity. The sound waves alone were causing physical damage to the pirate ships. Their navigation systems sparked and died. Their weapons targeting went offline. One ship's engines cut out completely. But Ember wasn't done. Not even close. She opened her mouth and let loose with everything she had. Purple flames, hot enough to melt titanium, engulfed the lead ship. The hull plating bubbled and ran like water. The ship tried to pull up, but Ember was faster. She slammed into it with her full body weight, and the pirate vessel crumpled like paper. Retreat! Retreat! Crix screamed into his comm. His ships tried to scatter, but Ember was everywhere at once. Her tail whipped around and caught a second ship, sending it spiraling into a third. The impact caused both to explode in a shower of debris. A fourth ship managed to get its weapons online and fired. The plasma bolt hit Ember square in the chest. She didn't even flinch. She just got angrier. The dragon dove on that ship like a hawk on a mouse. Her claws tore through the hull. Her teeth found the engine core. The ship went dead, falling from the sky. In the bunker, the colonists watched in stunned silence. Should we do something? Brett asked hesitantly. Help her maybe? Help her do what? Tyler was recording everything on his tablet. She's destroying them. Jake checked his scanner. 4 ships down. 2 fleeing. Wait, make that one fleeing. She just caught the other one. Lauren watched Ember chase down the 5th ship, breathing fire and screeching loud enough to crack stone. I think she's got this handled. 15 minutes after it started, it was over. 6 pirate ships were now scattered debris across the volcanic landscape. The last ship had barely made it to orbit before jumping away, engines on fire. Ember landed back at the settlement with a heavy thump. She was still growling, smoke curling from her nostrils. Pieces of ship hull were stuck between her teeth. One wing had a small burn mark from the plasma hit. And she was clearly still annoyed about her interrupted nap. The colonists emerged from the bunker cautiously. Lauren walked straight up to Ember, who was now trying to pick metal fragments out of her teeth with her claw. Ember, look at me. The dragon turned her head, still grumbling. We've talked about this. When you're angry, you use your words, not your fire breath. Ember huffed, which translated roughly to they started it. I know they woke you up. And yes, they were bad people. But look at this mess. Lauren gestured at the destroyed ships scattered everywhere. Who's going to clean all this up? The dragon had the decency to look slightly guilty. Kelly approached with her medical kit. Hold still, sweetie. Let me check that burn. Tyler was already making a medal out of bottle caps and wire. He hung it around Ember's neck with great ceremony. For best protector. You earned this one. Ember perked up immediately, all grumpiness forgotten. She preened, showing off her medal. That's when the Galactic Council's emergency response fleet arrived, 3 massive cruisers dropping out of hyperspace. They'd received the distress signal from the fleeing pirates and came expecting to find a massacre. Instead, they found humans gently scolding a dragon for property damage while treating her minor injuries. Admiral Vexkith, commander of the response fleet, opened a channel. Human settlement, this is the Galactic Council. We received reports of an attack. Do you require assistance? Lauren looked up at the camera. We're good, thanks. Just dealing with the aftermath. The aftermath? Our scans show 6 destroyed vessels. Yeah, Ember took care of it. She's very protective. And very cranky when you wake her up from naps. Through his viewport, Vexkith watched a human child hang a makeshift medal on a dragon that had just single-handedly destroyed a pirate fleet. He closed his eyes and transmitted back to headquarters. Situation resolved. Human settlement defended by. Please confirm I should file this correctly. By a dragon having a tantrum. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called exactly 72 hours after the Void Marauder incident. Representatives from 43 species gathered in the Grand Chamber on Station Nexus Prime, and everyone had the same question. How had humanity turned a baby dragon into a weapon? Captain Lauren Brooks received the summons while replacing a solar panel. She wiped grease off her hands, changed into her least-torn uniform, and took the transport shuttle up to the station. She brought Tyler with her because the kid had more video documentation than anyone else. The council chamber was impressive. Massive curved walls, translation fields humming in the air, and hundreds of alien faces all staring at her with expressions ranging from fear to fascination. Ambassador Krell 9 of the Zentari Empire spoke first, his voice echoing through the chamber. Captain Brooks, we have reviewed the footage from the attack on your settlement. We need to understand how you weaponized a Class A apex predator. Lauren blinked. Weaponized? We didn't weaponize anything. Then explain how a 6-month-old dragon defended your colony with such efficiency, demanded Counselor Thex from the Krell delegation. What conditioning protocols did you use? What technology? What psychological manipulation? We fed her, set some rules and gave her lots of love, Lauren said simply. That's it. The entire chamber fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. That's it? Ambassador Krell 9 leaned forward. No neural programming? No behavior modification chips? No chemical conditioning? No, Lauren said. We just raised her. Like a kid. Impossible, Thex stated flatly. Our research indicates Draconair dragons cannot form emotional bonds with other species. They are solitary, aggressive, and untrainable. Tyler spoke up from beside Lauren. Have you ever actually tried being nice to one? The council members looked at each other. Several shifted uncomfortably. Show them the videos, Lauren said. Tyler pulled up his tablet and connected it to the council's display system. The massive screens filled with footage. Not the dramatic battle scenes but everyday life at the settlement. The council watched humans teaching Ember table manners, patiently cleaning up after her messes, and enforcing bedtime even when she threw tantrums. They saw Kelly bandaging a scraped wing. They saw Brett sharing his lunch. They saw Derek building her a bigger sleeping platform when she outgrew the old one. They saw Lauren hugging Ember after she accidentally broke someone's work tools, telling her it was okay, mistakes happen, but she needed to be more careful. You treat it like a child, Counselor Vrax of the Vax Collective said slowly. She's not an it, Lauren corrected gently. Her name is Ember. And yeah, we treat her like family. Because that's what she is. But the attack footage shows extreme protective behavior, Ambassador Krell 9 pressed. That level of aggression. She was defending her family, Lauren interrupted. Wouldn't you do the same? The ambassador had no response to that. A smaller voice spoke from the back. Counselor Pix, representing the Quillan species, asked softly, Did you ever consider that she might hurt you? Lauren thought about it. Honestly? At first, yeah. But here's the thing. If you treat someone with kindness and respect, if you give them boundaries and love and security, most of the time they'll rise to meet that. Not always. Sometimes you get it wrong. But you try anyway. That's incredibly inefficient, Thex said. Maybe, Lauren shrugged. But it works. And more importantly, it's the right thing to do. Ember was a baby who'd lost her mother. She was scared and alone. We could have walked away. But that's not who we are. Tyler pulled up another video. This one showed Ember gently playing with the colony's youngest child, a 4-year-old named Amy. The massive dragon was being incredibly careful, letting the tiny human climb on her back, adjusting her movements so she didn't accidentally knock the child over. A weapon wouldn't do that, Lauren said quietly. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Ambassador Krell 9 spoke, his voice thoughtful. We may have categorized these creatures incorrectly. You categorized them as animals, Lauren said. But they're people. Different kind of people, but people nonetheless. They feel, they learn, they love. You just have to give them the chance. The council adjourned without reaching a formal conclusion. But 3 weeks later, Lauren received an interesting message. The Galactic Wildlife Preservation Bureau had found 5 more abandoned dragon hatchlings on various planets. Would the human colony be willing to take them in? Lauren looked at Ember, who was currently sulking because her dinner wasn't warm enough. The dragon was making the most pathetic whining sounds, like her life was ending. "What do you think, girl? Want some siblings?" Ember perked up immediately, tantrum forgotten. 6 months after that, Wayfarer's Hope Colony had become legendary. Not for their technology. Not for their military might. But because they had 6 dragons ranging from 6 months to a year old, all going through various developmental phases. And by phases, what everyone meant was tantrums. So many tantrums. The youngest, a little green dragon named Spark, had discovered she could turn invisible and spent 3 days stealing everyone's food before they figured out how to catch her. The oldest, a massive red dragon named Blaze, had decided he was too grown up for bedtime and staged a protest that lasted 2 weeks. The Galactic Council sent observers. Then researchers. Then journalists. Everyone wanted to understand how humanity had achieved the impossible. Tyler's video channel hit 10 billion followers. His most popular upload was titled 6 Dragons Refuse Bath Time, a documentary, and had been viewed across 70 systems. Counselor Pix visited the settlement personally. She watched Lauren mediate a fight between Ember and Blaze over who got the best sleeping spot. She watched Brett teach Spark that stealing was wrong, even when invisible. She watched Kelly comfort a crying hatchling who'd had a nightmare. "How do you do it?" Pix asked. "How do you have the patience?" Lauren smiled tiredly. "You just do. Because they're worth it. Every tantrum, every mess, every exhausting moment. They're worth it." The galaxy learned something important that year. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology. It was their ability to look at something fierce, dangerous, and completely unreasonable, and see someone who just needed love. Ember still threw tantrums when her food was cold. She still stole boots when she was mad. Tyler still filmed everything. But on quiet evenings, when the work was done and the dragons were settled, Ember would curl up next to Lauren, rumbling contentedly. And Lauren would rest her hand on those purple scales and know they'd done something right. The galaxy would never be quite the same. And that was exactly how it should be.